their feet were on the earth, they themselves stuck up into the sky. It was the sky they were walking through, just as birds flew through it. She looked over at Martin, walking through the sky. A crow is being chased by an eagle. Ursula K. Le Guin would have written something beautiful about that. What's up, guys? My name is Moot. I am a college student who loves reading, and I'm here to share this love with all of you. So, I would consider myself a fairly intelligent person. I think that you can be intelligent in plenty of different ways, but I think academically I do fairly well, especially in like the things I specialize in, such as English and history and Korean actually. But I think I have met my match with this book. I think this just proved to me Namjoon from BTS is just so much smarter than I am. The Real and the Unreal by Ursula K. Le Guin is a collection of stories that she wrote ranging over decades. This is her work from decades of writing. And it's gorgeous. And I'm going to read you more excerpts like the first one. But I just think that she's too smart for me. I think that she possesses intellectualism that I just do not possess. Don't get me wrong, I'm confident in my intelligence and I really love learning, and this was just a fantastic experience for me reading the whole thing, but there was always some sort of mental block. Some of the stories I got and I loved, and I'll go into that, but most of these stories left me wondering. I wondered what she understood that I did not. And I find that quite fascinating. And it's just more proof that Namjoon from BTS, RM from BTS, is just smarter than I will ever be. And that's okay. But it's just the truth. We will start with the summary like I always do. However, since it is a collection of stories, it will not aid in too much. Really just the feel of this book and what you could expect from this book. So I will read that to you now. For 50 years, National Book Award winner Ursula K. Le Guin's stories have shaped the way her readers see the world. Her work gives voice to the voiceless, hope to the outsider, and speaks truth to power. Le Guin's writing is witty, wise, both sly and forthright. She is a master craftswoman. This 2-volume selection of almost 40 stories taken from her 11 collections was made by Le Guin herself, as was the organizing principle of splitting the stories into nominally realistic and fantastic. Where on Earth focuses on Le Guin's interest in realism and magic realism, it includes many of Le Guin's satirical, political, and experimental earthbound stories. Highlights include World Fantasy and Hugo Award winner Buffalo Gals' Won't You Come Out Tonight, the rarely reprinted satirical short The Lost Children, and the title story of her Pulitzer Prize finalist collection, Unlocking the Air. Stories in this volume were originally published in the venues as varied as Playboy, Tri-Quarterly, Orbit, Redbook, and The New Yorker. Companion volume Outer Space, Inner Lands includes Le Guin's best-known non-realistic stories. Both volumes include introductions by the author. So that kind of really just told you this is a collection of stories split into 2. I only have volume 1 with me right now. I am very interested in reading volume 2, as am I interested in reading one of her full-length novels, but I think I will talk about really more the way this book made me feel rather than any sort of plot, because for a lot of these stories there isn't really that much of a plot. It's very ambiguous. It's really more on feeling than anything, and I will highlight some of my favorites. I will highlight what happens in them, but there really aren't too many that really have a strong, like, A happens, so B and C happen after. It's not very continuous. It's really more about how the stories make you feel. And that seems like a very common through line with the books that I've read that Namjoon has recommended, because while this volume was not the one that Namjoon was seen reading and that Namjoon recommended, but he did read from this author, and I would definitely really love to read more of this author. But like Kafka on the Shore, this book really focuses on evoking feeling from the reader, and that is what I will cover mostly. Let's start by reading an excerpt that I love from Unlocking the Air. This is a stone. It's a paving stone of a square that slants downhill in front of an old, reddish, almost windowless fortress called the Roke Palace. The square was paved nearly 300 years ago, so a lot of feet have walked on this stone. Bare feet and shod, children's little pads, horses' iron shoes, soldiers' boots, and wheels have gone over and over it. Cart wheels, carriage wheels, car tires, tank treads, dog paws every now and then. There's been dog feces on it, there's been blood, both soon washed away by water sloshed from buckets or run from hoses or dropped from the clouds. You can't get blood from a stone, they say, nor can you give it to a stone. It takes no stain. Some of the pavement down near that street that leads out of Roke Square through the old Jewish quarter to the river got dug up once or twice and piled into a barricade, and some of the stones even found themselves flying through the air, but not for long. They were soon put back in their place or replaced by others. It made no difference to them. The man hit by the flying stone dropped down like a stone beside the stone that killed him. The man shot through the brain, fell down, and his blood ran out on this stone or another one maybe. It makes no difference to them. The soldiers washed his blood away with water sloshed from buckets, the buckets their horses drank from. The rain fell after a while. The snow fell. Bells rang the hours, the Christmases, the New Year's. A tank stopped with its treads on this stone. You'd think that would leave a mark, a huge heavy thing like a tank, but the stone shows nothing. Only all the feet bare and shod over the centuries have worn a quality into it. Not a smoothness exactly, but a kind of softness like leather or like skin. Unstained, unmarked, indifferent, it does not have that quality of having been worn for a long time by life. So it is a stone of power, and who sets foot on it may be transformed. Like, do you get what I mean? That, like, it's beautiful, and you're just like, wow, this has such deep meaning, but it's also a little confusing. Like, yes, I understand that, like, the stone represents how life goes on even when crazy events happen, and the stone is representative of this world that seems to be changing all around it, but history is washed away and new things come, and life just continues on, and it makes no difference to the stones on the ground because they are just stones. They see everything, but it makes no difference to them. It feels profound. It feels confusing. The rest of the story I didn't really understand very well. I could not interpret it or find a ton of meaning from it. Though obviously there was meaning, because I think everything that Ursula K. Le Guin writes has a ton of meaning. But that passage specifically stood out to me, and I thank you that you let me read the whole thing, because I think that the entire thing was incredibly profound. One of my favorite stories was The Diary of the Rose, which is from the perspective of a scientist writing a diary, and this scientist works with patients in a psych ward who are checked in because they were crazy, because they just started saying that they have crazy ideas. But this doctor meets a patient who does not believe he is crazy, who believes he is being gaslit into believing he is crazy because he does not like the way that things are run. So they took him out and they called him crazy and put him in a psych ward and tried to erase his memory, and he's just like, no, I don't want that. I want to make sure that we try to make a better world for people. And he says this, and I just emulates everything that I feel quite a lot. He says, I love the idea of democracy, the hope, yes, I love that. I couldn't live without that. But the country? You mean the thing on the map lines? Everything inside the lines is good and nothing outside them matters? How can an adult love such a childish idea? Like, can you see why she's so profound? She wrote this decades ago. She first wrote The Diary of the Rose in 1976. And these are ideas that still hit very close to home with me, because we're living in a time in history where nationalism is so rampant, and it destroys people's lives. And I just am so disillusioned. And that nationalism is because of fake lines on maps. I live closer to Canada than any other US state. I feel like I have more in common with the Canadians up on the border than the people in Idaho that are in the same country as me, but are bordering my state. But because there's an imaginary line drawn, it's just so interesting that we're not the same. We have so many similar things within our culture, but we're not the same. And so it should be us versus them. That's just so interesting to me. I've always thought that was interesting. I think imaginary lines in maps are just crazy and they hold too much importance in this society. But because they're written and because people have universally agreed, for the most part, that these lines mean something, do they exist now? Like, that's such an interesting thing to ponder. I'd like to show you this map called Cascadia. Now, the geography may seem familiar to you, but the lines drawn are not. Why is that? Because Cascadia as a country does not exist. Honestly, with the way that things are going in the world right now, I would rather live in Cascadia than in the United States, because I feel like I would agree with people more on policy and law and such. However, that's not the country I live in. I live in the US because they drew a line up on the top of the country. And that means that Washington and British Columbia, though they are quite similar, it means that we have this line of separation between us that just separates us beyond anything else can. So I just found that quite interesting. Another story I really enjoyed was called Direction of the Road. It is told from an oak tree's perspective, and in this, the oak tree is the one moving. Everything is moving towards it. It's swishing past the cars. It's swishing past everything that goes on its road. It's so fast. It's moving so fast. And at the end, it runs into a car. And when it hits a car, the tree says this: "It is not that I protest. I had to kill him. I had no choice, and therefore have no regret. What I protest, what I cannot endure is this. As I leapt at him, he saw me. He looked up at last. He saw me as I had never been seen before, not even by a child, not even in the days when the people looked at things. He saw me as a whole and saw nothing else, then or ever." And it's just so interesting. The tree says, I leapt at this car. When you think of a car smashing into the tree, you think of the object that is in motion. You think of the vehicle. But this was the story of the perspective of the tree, and the tree believed that it was moving, that it was the thing in motion. And I just find that very interesting. I think that that is a very good testament of how Ursula K. Le Guin's brain works, because who else would think of that? It's another thing, like, I don't understand it, but I know that she's a genius. It's just that kind of thing. It's a beautiful collection of stories, and it's just a look into a woman's incredible mind that sees the world in such a different way than everyone else. Another one I love is she just is never afraid to be blunt. She says this, which made me laugh so much. "I put her on Sally, the cutting horse I traded the Cessna plus $1,500 for, a highly reliable horse and more intelligent than most Republicans." Like, that's so funny. Like, that was in 1995. That wasn't like in this political climate. I also think that it felt very comforting to me because she's from Oregon, she's from the Pacific Northwest, and I'm from this Pacific Northwest, and don't get me wrong, like, Oregon and Washington have a little like who's better, and like Washington is better. But I think a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest feel the same about nature and human life and just stuff like that. And it just felt comforting reading a book that felt so familiar while also being so new and so exciting. The last story I'll really touch on is Buffalo Gals, Won't You Come Out Tonight? In this story, I really didn't understand that much. I think that it had to do with like treating animals well and sort of that kind of thing, but I'll just tell you kind of what happens in it, because this one is one that I really couldn't understand, but I really did enjoy. So this book follows a little girl who falls out of a plane in a plane crash, and she survives, and she gets found by a coyote, but then the coyote turns into a humanoid version of the coyote. Not like anthropomorphic, like an actual human. And the coyote brings her to this area where all of these animals, like, you knew that they were animals, but they all looked like humans to the little girl. But she was hanging out with like a frog, for example, or a toad, and the toad goes, "Oh, well, you just look like a toad to me." So that was quite interesting, because from every other animal's perspective, all of the people that the little girl saw as like humanoid, despite being like rabbit and bird and stuff like that, to those animals, they just looked like the other animals. And I thought that was really interesting, and they kind of had this through line of like, oh yeah, like we all live in community, we can all communicate and that kind of thing, but you just can't tell the humans, that kind of thing. And it was really interesting, and you learned about the dynamic between them, and it was just this little girl trying to find her footing, and in the end she has to go back to the human village, but she doesn't want to. And I feel like I'm not explaining it well enough. I think that if anything from this video was interesting to you, you should read this book. But I just thought that it was a really interesting perspective on animals and like how they interact with the world and how humans interact with animals and their habitats and that kind of thing. So I really like that. I understand why it was award-winning. But all in all, she's just too smart for me, man. Like, I could tell the importance of this book, but like I was confused the whole time. And if you can handle being confused, or you believe you are smarter than me, which is entirely possible, you should read this book. If this book interests you in any way, you should read this book. If you love nature, you should read this book. If you love political activism, you should read this book. I just think that it's a fantastic read. It talks about, politics and social dynamics and family dynamics and the way humans interact with the world and class issues and a lot of things you can think of, and it's very, very, very thought-provoking. So I recommend this book a lot. I love this book even though I cannot understand it for anything. Try as I might. So I'm going to end this video here. If you liked it, make sure to like it, comment down below a book that you loved even though you didn't understand it completely. I don't know if anyone else has the same feelings that I do about this stuff, but yes. If you like this content, subscribe. I release videos every other Thursday for your viewing pleasure. But yeah, I hope you just have a wonderful time. Without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!